Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. In today's episode of the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, we have Eric Gutman. Eric Gutman is a seasoned scientist and education expert. Starting his career as a NASA research assistant at 17, he became a research scholar at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory and earned an applied physics degree from Columbia University. After working in geophysics and earning a graduate degree in physics from the University of Chicago, Eric specialized in relativity and cosmology. A former US Navy serviceman, he later joined Kaplan Test Prep, becoming a top-rated instructor and founded the Best Test Prep. Eric is also a Mensa member and Columbia University alumni interviewer. Hi, Eric. Good morning. Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show. Thanks so much for taking time out for this.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, Eric. Eric, I was going through your website, thebesttestprep.com, and it was unlike any other websites that I've come across. It was very military-esque sort of a language feel and vibe and stuff, and wasn't very surprising when I read your bio. But I'd like to hear it from you. How did you get into teaching?
Well, it's ironic that you make those comments about our website because we're about to have a new website come out. I'm thrilled that the previous one made such an impression. I fell into test preparation entirely by accident, as is often the case in life. I was working as a quantitative analyst in arbitrage, and it's a very early profession. You know, you're especially, I was in Chicago at the time. You're working at 6:30 in the morning and you're done by 3:30 in the afternoon. So, being the workaholic that I am, I needed something more, and so I started teaching GRE preparation for Kaplan, which I believe is the world's largest test prep company. I started teaching GRE prep for them in the evenings as a hobby and for extra cash, and it took on a life of its own. It was very unexpectedly successful. I like public speaking, so maybe that was part of it. I like helping people, so that was part of it. But it was very successful. It became a second hobby that eventually morphed into a second career. And when I moved back to New York, which is where I'm from, I had to make a choice because I was working 100 hours a week. I had 2 full-time jobs, and I was almost not even living. I was just working 2 full-time jobs. I had to choose one, so I chose test preparation.
Got it, Eric. You started off as a thing to keep yourself engaged because you were not doing anything after 3:30 p.m. But and of course, you said because you liked public speaking and helping people, it also came naturally to you. But what are the other elements in that you made a choice? Okay, you're going to take it up full time, especially given the a great skill set that you possess, to do a lot of other stuff. So what exactly did made you choose teaching as a full-time thing?
That's a good question. So first of all, by education and trade, I'm a physicist. So what does a physicist do? A physicist, and I got that question a lot because you can have a physicist working in astronomy, you can have a physicist working in almost anything, nuclear power, or even in finance. So what does a physicist do? A physicist takes a real-world physical situation and translates it into mathematical terms. That's the fundamental commonality amongst all physicists. We take real-world physical situations and we translate them into mathematical terms. You can even do that in arbitrage situations, which is why at the company, when I was in arbitrage, we had no MBAs. We were all engineers, physicists, and mathematicians. What does that have to do with test preparation? Well, especially in the math sections of standardized tests, the GRE, the GMAT, and to a lesser extent, the SAT and ACT, one needs to take a real-world physical situation and translate it into mathematical terms, perhaps on a less intense, level than a physicist would, perhaps on a more elementary level than a physicist would. But it's the the overall objective is the same. The overall skill set is the same. Taking a real world physical situation, taking English words and translating them into math. So that was so that definitely appeals to me. Also, like I said, I just kind of fell into it. If I, were 22 years old and asked, are you planning on going to standardized test preparation? I would have said no. But it became a hobby. And as a hobby, it was just very enjoyable. I like public speaking. I like helping people. I like solving complicated math problems. I like the challenges involved in standardized test preparation. I also like giving people advantages that I never had. When I was growing up, I had no test preparation at all. That's the irony of the whole thing. All of my company's clients have advantages that I did not have. I did not have a tutor. I didn't even have a class. I had a book. I had a $20 book that was given to me, and so here, prepare. So I had no advantages at all. So I also like helping people. I like giving people advantages that I never had, while using a skill set that I have as a physicist. So you put them all together, and that's how I fell into test preparation.
Got it, Eric. And when I was going through your website, right, I saw these graphs of statistics, where you had a comparison of the feedback from the students, you versus the average of the other lecturers, other instructors. And yours was pretty high in comparison to a lot of other people, and consistently so. It's one thing to be an expert in the subject matter, and then, be great at it. But teaching is not just that. It's got other elements to it. There are a couple of testimonials I read where people say that, he motivates me and a lot of other stuff. So my question is, what do you think that you did differently from other teachers that made you stand out like that in front of the students?
That's actually a very important question. And the premise of your question is extremely clairvoyant. The skill set of being able to ace a standardized test is completely different and separate from the skill set of being able to impart that information to someone else, to be able to communicate that information to someone else, so that other person can ace that same standardized test. They are completely different skill sets. When I was in graduate school, I studied cosmology, relativity and cosmology. And some of my professors were some of the top scientists in the world, some of the top physicists in the world. They were very, very famous. I was at the University of Chicago, where the field of cosmology was essentially developed in the past 30, 40 years and expanded in the past 30, 40 years. And they're all, as scientists, they're all off the charts. But as teachers, some of them were really lousy. And because that's not their job, that's not the skill set they're expected to have. They're completely different skill sets. And the difference between having an effective instructor versus having an ineffective instructor is like night and day. It is a huge difference. When I was working for, and I'm pleased that, I'm impressed that you read through my statistics, at least somebody has. When I was at Kaplan, my TE was in the 90s. Let me just explain what that means. Kaplan is like any company, runs on numbers. Teacher excellence, or TE for short, is the metric by which Kaplan judges, if you will, measures its instructors. Teacher excellence is the percentage of your students who rank you as excellent on a scale of excellent, good, fair, or poor. After every class, your students get a survey, which they have to fill out, and they can rank you either as excellent, good, fair, or poor. Teacher excellence is the percentage of your students who rank you as excellent. in order to go into what's called the Kaplan Academy, which is the top 2 or 3% of Kaplan's 5,000 or 6,000 instructors worldwide, an instructor needs a TE in the 90s, which is a lot harder than what it sounds. That means that at least 90% of your students are ranking you as an excellent instructor. If one student ranks you as a good instructor, you need 9 other students to balance him out by ranking you as excellent. So it's very, very challenging. It's very challenging. But the difference between having an instructor whose TE is in the 90s versus one whose teacher excellence is in the 80s or 70s is like night and day. It's like night and day. When I was teaching a class, I believe it was like a Monday, Wednesday section, and another teacher, another Kaplan instructor was teaching a Tuesday, Thursday section. My teacher excellence was in the 90s. Hers was in the 80s, which is still very impressive. That means at least 8 out of 10 students were ranked there as excellent. Some of her students were literally leaving her class to come into mine. It's like night and day. A high TE, once you go into the Kaplan Academy and you have a teacher excellence of at least 90%, you become well known at the company. You become a face at the company. I had a video call with the vice president of academic affairs, Brandon Jones. They started giving me some of their largest classes in the country in Midtown Manhattan. I've got my little award letter on the wall. I've got thank you letters on the other wall. Of my office. So you become a well-known, and that's for a reason, because again, the difference between the average Kaplan instructor has a teacher excellence probably in the 70s, which is still very impressive. If 3 out of 4, 75% of your students are ranking you as excellent, that's pretty good. I don't think most public school teachers would survive, okay? I don't think most college professors would survive. In for-profit education, your clients are your students. Your students are your clients. So you need to be really, really good. You need to be very, very impressive. So the average Kaplan TE is probably about 75%. If you're in the 80s, that's impressive. If you're in the 90s, it's very, very challenging. Only the top 2 or 3% of Kaplan's instructors going to the academy with 90 plus TE. But it's very, very challenging. But the differences are like night and day. And that's actually why I started my company, because I was my TE was in the 90s. In fact, so my PE was comfortably in the 90s. I was well known at the company, and I had a student. I was giving an intro session for the GRE, which is the standardized test we take to get into graduate school. I was giving an intro session at NYU Langone. There were some interns there over the summer, and a female student, after I was done giving my presentation, was walking towards the exit. I had no idea that a female student was chasing me down 3 flights of stairs to tell me her story. And her story was that she had already spent about 6 months preparing for the GRE to go to graduate school. She was a current college student. She had been at NYU Langone in an internship over the summer. She didn't want to go to medical school, even though NYU Langone is a medical school. She wanted to go to just regular graduate school for speech language pathology, which would explain why she was at NYU Langone. She wanted to go to regular graduate school, take the GRE. She had already spent 6 months preparing for the GRE. She said she liked her class. Her teacher was so-so. Her tutor was so-so. So she begged me to prepare her for the GRE. She had severe test anxiety. I believe she either felt she wasn't ready or she had taken the test once before and she got a subpar score. She begged me to teach her and to get her ready for the test. I taught her, she got the score she needed, and she moved on. So the thought that, and there are lots of stories like that. There was the poor kid whose aunt happened to know me socially. He had taken the SAT 3 times. He needed a 1400. He kept missing 1400. He was in the 1200s. He was in the 1300s. He kept missing it. His aunt happened to know me socially. She sent him in my direction. He got 1440 and moved on. So I started thinking to myself, what if there were a boutique company that only had seasoned veteran instructors. When we hire a new instructor, yes, I want to see the resume. That's nice. I have to see the scores, the test scores that the instructor got. Instructor has to be in the top 5%. I prefer the top 1%. The instructor has to have aced the test. But what I want to see more than anything else is the student feedback of the instructor at the last company the instructor taught at. We don't hire rookies the way Kaplan does. We don't hire, Kaplan has staffing, massive staffing needs. I'm not knocking Kaplan. They train me, and they're just a different type of company. They're a massive company. They need to have 5,000, 6,000 instructors at any given time. So they have to hire 18-year-olds who just took the SAT to teach SAT or ACT. They need to hire 22-year-old graduate students who just took the GRE to teach GRE. We don't touch that. We do not hire rookies. In order to teach for us, an instructor must have already taught someplace else. An instructor must have already taught for Kaplan, for Princeton, for 2400 prep, for a private prep. An instructor must have already taught elsewhere and have student feedback in black and white showing how much or little the students like that instructor. We need to see student feedback because the skill set for teaching someone else how to ace an exam is completely different from the skill set of someone being able to ace the exam themselves. And that's what's missing from most standardized test prep companies. I see all the time, advertisements. All of our instructors in the top 1%. All of our instructors in the top 10%. Well, pay us more. Pay us a premium rate. You can go with our senior instructors, our experienced instructors. Really? Well, if an instructor's been if an instructor scored in the top 1%, that means the instructor's very bright. But does that mean the instructor can communicate with students? If the instructor scored in the top 5%, that means the instructor did very well on the test. But can the instructor communicate well with students? If the instructor's been teaching for 8 years, 10 years, one of our competitors tried to copy us, and now they have a premium service. If you pay more money, you pay a premium fee, you can go with the instructor's been teaching for like 8 years or more, 10 years or more. But does that mean the instructor's really good? Or does that mean the students like the instructor? Or the instructor just hasn't been fired for the past 8 years? So with us, we need to see in black and white that students like our instructors before we even hire them. And that's why we start them at 5 times the pay rate that other companies start their instructors at, because the teach for us is very, very challenging. We're very selective.
I saw, your instructors, you've got about, I think, 7 or 6 apart from you. And I did read your criteria for selecting the instructors as well. Is there, it's one thing to look at the student feedback, but when you interview or talk to the people that you want to hire, you're looking to hire, are you able to, discern whether they might have had a great student feedback, or what sets them apart from the normal instructors according to you? The one that have the students is great feedback.
We need to see in black and white that they have great feedback. We don't really look well upon references, because anybody can come up with a reference. You could have your 4th cousin 8 times removed write you a reference. We don't really look well upon references. We need to see in black and white, we need to see data from the prior company that the instructor taught for, showing how liked or disliked that instructor was. And there are other things, though, I can tell, just from having done this as long as I've been in test prep for the past 14 years. I can tell. I can also tell how well someone can get his or her points across. There's certain metrics, how much humor the person uses. There's certain pointers that lead us in the right direction. But we're very selective in whom we bring on board, and we can be, because we don't have the staffing requirements that a massive company has. We're boutique. We're a boutique. We can be very selective in the instructors whom we hire.
Got it, Eric. And when it comes to, motivating students, I've heard a lot of teachers or instructors say that, look, we're not here to motivate anybody. We're just here to help them with the test prep, and students are supposed to be motivated already. In your case, I see that some students have told that you motivate them. Like, how do you really motivate somebody who needs motivation from the outside?
You know, the quote that you gave me from other instructors probably explains why so many test prep companies are so awful. No, an instructor is not only an instructor. A test prep instructor is very much a coach. Very much a coach. Think about it. You have a clientele that is being forced to take a test it doesn't want to take. One is working with students, an instructor is working with students who are being forced to take exams they do not want to take. It is very rare to come across a student who actually wants to take it. I think they're great. I show up every few years to requalify for the GRE, and it's like my birthday, and I'm all smiles. But I'm probably the only one. Most people do not want to take these exams. And there's a confidence curve. There's very much a confidence curve. Very much so. You know, like any sport, you know, I often say that standardized tests are like intellectual sports competitions. That's really what they are. They're intellectual sports competitions. And when you're preparing for one, there's absolutely a confidence curve. And a test prep instructor is being looked to guide his or her students through the process of preparing for a test that his or her students don't want to take. So being a coach, being a motivator is absolutely necessary. And one does not help students by telling the students what they want to hear. You don't help people by lowering standards and assuring them everything is going to be okay. You help students by giving them a swift kick in the rear.
Got it, Eric. And when you decided to, start on your own, the best test prep company, what was the transition from Kaplan like? How easy or difficult was it for you to find students? What is the approach you took to get your first set of students?
So I entered the industry as with my own company in a fairly strong position, because at that point, not only had I been trained by Kaplan, but I had seen a fair amount of success with Kaplan. So people can tell if you know what you're talking about or if you're faking it. People can tell. If you were to call me at 3:30 in the morning when I haven't slept in 15 days, I'd be able to give you a full rundown of how exactly test preparation works. Because I eat, sleep, and breathe it all day, every day. Okay. So, I can explain it while treading water in a pool. So people can tell. And I came in a very strong position. For example, we had a pair of students who were not even preparing for a test yet. They were in the 8th grade, and they were in a tutoring program that was not working. That was simply not working. They weren't just failing math. They were really failing math. I mean, like getting in the 40s or something like that. They were bombing math. So the head of the tutoring program in which they were enrolled, to her credit, realized that she did not have tutors who would be able to help these kids. She happened to know me, and she sent them in my direction. And they ended up, their scores shot up to the B range. And then in the years that followed, into the A range. They finished, one of them in particular finished high school at the top of his class in math. He ended up with a 4-year full tuition scholarship. And the other one ended up getting admitted to his top choice university, early decision. So, I had already entered with not only experience from Kaplan, but with a skill set that enabled me to take on the standardized test preparation, client base and really help it out, and meet with a fair measure of success even once I founded my private company.
Got it, Eric. Eric, you started off as a one-man company, right? And then you started hiring people. One of the dilemmas that people face is usually, for example, you have a strong reputation going for you, which is one of the key strengths for students to come to you and stuff like that. Now, then comes the point of scaling up, growing your business. Now, anybody who's into the tutoring business know that it is directly proportional to the amount of time that you have. You can't scale it beyond that unless you have a product that you just want to create once and sell the rest of the times. But how easy or difficult was it to make a decision to add team members to your organization under your name? Because it is also your reputation on the line. And how easy was it for you to set the process for you to maintain the standard or the quality of the services that the best test prep company provides?
So let me just correct something. So when the company was started, I was not entirely alone. Even before it became an LLC, I already had lined up a social media marketing manager. I had already lined up a couple of support staff and so forth. Some were contracted, some were employed, and we immediately began looking for instructors to hire. But your question about scaling up is a very important one. The test preparation industry is very much moving online, very much so, like all industries. And in fact, we're one of the few companies here in New York City that still offers in-person services. Most of them do not. Most of them, I don't think Kaplan even offers them in person anymore. And I know of maybe one, there are other, there's no need for me to go listing the companies out there, but I can only think of one that actually still offers in-person instruction other than us. We still offer it, but we also want to help people on a more global scale. So we are, and we're fully aware of the fact that many people want to come and study in the United States from countries like India and so forth. So we are moving online. We have live online courses to reach students who want to study in the United States and are geographically removed from us. Not, maybe they don't live anywhere near New York. Maybe they live in rural Alaska somewhere and they want to go to a top university. They have every right to prepare as anyone else does. Maybe American universities are known for admitting foreign students. Maybe somebody somewhere in India wants to apply to come to the United States. So we are scaling up and now serving a global audience through live online courses, and in the future plan to do so through on-demand courses. On-demand is a whole other animal. They are very, very large endeavors, very large projects. Each one is like producing a movie. So now, that takes a bit more time. Very few companies have them for that reason because they are massive endeavors to put together. But we are working on putting them together for the future. And currently we offer live online instruction for students who are located anywhere.
Got it, Eric. Eric, now as you scale up and as you grow, I see that, from whatever I've spoken to you, you love teaching, you love interacting with students, and you still do actively teach students. Now, how do you balance the organizational growth stuff and the teaching as well? Are you planning to scale down your teaching a little bit and then focus on growing, or what is it?
That's a great question. These are all really good questions. And I can tell you've done your homework in researching our company. So my schedule is very, very busy, to put it mildly. Generally speaking, when a client reaches out to us, a potential client reaches out to us, because even with marketing and so forth, I would estimate at least 90% of our client base is referral. We're mostly referral. Word of mouth, mostly word of mouth as of now. And again, we're looking to change that because we want to reach people across the globe. But for now, we're mostly word of mouth. So when we are reached out to, typically what will happen is my assistant will set up a phone consultation, free phone consultation. And I like to be the one on that phone consultation. I like to personally welcome that potential client to our company. And I like to answer any and all questions that that client might have, whether the client is the parent of a student or whether the client is the student himself or herself. I like to answer any and all questions. I'd like to explain exactly what the client can expect throughout the test preparation process so there are no surprises later on. Oftentimes, these consultations will run at least 30 minutes to an hour, and they're entirely free. And I do it, and I do it not knowing whether the client will end up, because whether the potential client will end up signing with us or not. I do it entirely for the client's benefit. Oftentimes, after that initial call, and perhaps with the word of mouth that the potential client has already received, oftentimes I am personally requested by the client to be the instructor. I would actually say that happens the majority of the time. So that puts a large burden on my schedule because I'm also overseeing the development of on-demand courses, of our new website, which can host such courses, an online quiz bank, and we have so many products in development. I'm being pulled in many different directions. So I do try to disperse and assign as many clients as possible who would love to have some of our other instructors who are all veterans. They're all veterans, all of them. They all have phenomenal track records, phenomenal feedback from students. However, I suppose due to my name in the industry, due to my track record with students, due to the word of mouth, many clients, probably the majority, are insistent that I be the personal instructor. So it is a very long schedule that I have. Even as we were talking before we got on air, even as I have you, as we're doing this interview on one call, I have a meeting that I am kind of slipping away from in another. So there's a lot going on.
Got it, Eric. And I'm sure there are a lot of instances when you have to pass on the students to other tutors. So how easy it is to convince the parents or the students, who are specifically requesting for you, or do they say okay to that, or do they wait till your slots get full?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And the answer is I do not try to pass anybody off. I do not try to pass any student off to anyone. First of all, I couldn't if I wanted to because I'm not a salesman. I do not have the talent of a salesman. I don't have a bone in my body to sell anything. So I do not try to pass anyone off. I could not try to pass anyone off if I wanted to. I simply give the qualifications of our other instructors, and wherever the potential clients want to go, I honor that. If they want to go with another instructor, I honor that. Or if they're willing to go with another instructor is probably a better way of putting it. I honor that. If they insist on me, we honor that as well.
Got it, Eric. And you said a lot of test prep companies and business operations are going online. Yours is the only one that's got in person as well. Why? I mean, are parents or students insisting on having in-person classes? Is that why you still have that model?
That's a great question. You will always have a residual population that wants in-person because they feel it's a more immersive experience. Since COVID, and I have no problem pushing people hard. That's my job as a coach. Since COVID, people have become lazy. I'm not talking about specifically my clients. I mean the whole world. Okay, people have become lazy. Just to generalize, 8 billion people, and I say that in jest. In other words, many people have become lazy. They don't want to leave their home, and they want the convenience of in person. And we're happy to accommodate that. And with our instructors, there's so much energy. That energy can be communicated even online. Okay, even online, it's a two-way video, so we see each other, so we can see the student's facial expressions. We can see whether the student's following or not. So it's as if the student's really in the room. It is the very next best thing. It's two-way video, and there's a lot of energy there, and a lot of students enjoy it. They do it from the comfort of their home, and everyone's happy. However, you will have a residual population that wants in-person. They want that immersive experience. They are willing to make the trip to Midtown Manhattan, to our in-person location, and we are happy to have them. And essentially, they sit in a classroom that is just for them, whether it's one-on-one instruction of a single student, whether it's a group of 4 or 5, because lots of people come to us as a group. They want us to prepare them and their friends. And they have their own classroom, and they know that they've arrived. There's none of this, let's meet in a coffee shop silliness. There's none of that. No, it is a classroom with just them. They know they're in the right place. They get the score they need, and they move on.
Got it, Eric. I have another question. The last time I happened to speak to someone with a lot of energy, he usually stands and teaches, and he has a beautiful studio and stuff like that. He was in the West Coast. And after him, I'm meeting you, who's someone, while talking, I see you put in a lot of energy. There's so much body language, even in the voice volume and stuff like that. How do you sustain for, a lot of hours during the day? I mean, is there any workouts that you do, or any supplements that you take, or is it just that's the way you are?
That's another great question. So first of all, when I teach, I do stand, predominantly stand. Occasionally, if we're going through some reading comprehension passages or something, then maybe I'll sit for a little while. But mostly, I stand. I'm very passionate about it. First of all, I like public speaking. And I'm very passionate about teaching. I'm very passionate about helping people. So it comes naturally. I don't take supplements for it. I am very much into fitness, so perhaps that helps. But I try to give it everything I have, because again, the students are looking to us to get them through an experience that they do not want to be in. They do not want to take these tests. They essentially are being forced to take these tests against their will. So the students are looking to me, or looking to us, to our company, to get them through this experience. So we go all out for them. Whether it's putting energy into a session, whether it's contacting the college board to help them out, on their behalf, whether it's contacting the educational testing service, which writes the GRE, to help them on their behalf. We go all out. But I will admit, after the sessions are over, I often am pretty tired. It's like a performance. It is like a work persona that I put on for the benefit of my students, and it can be tiring.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, work persona, because I have spoken to a lot of people. Part of them have admitted, it is a performance that you need for the positive benefit of the student. Some of them say, no, I mean, it's not sustainable. But it's great to know that, you have a work persona and it works for you. Eric, probably a couple of concluding questions. One is, when it comes to teaching online, of course, I realized from your talking to you that more than any of the tools and stuff like that, your energy comes through. But what are the tools that you use for, the video conferencing tool, or do you use a whiteboard digitally? What makes up your toolkit for online teaching?
So our online studio, which you can see behind me, you can see the whiteboard behind me, right, is fairly sophisticated. We have proper lighting. For now, you're literally on my mobile device, and which is sitting on my desk. But we have a more elaborate camera setup. We have multiple sources of lighting. It's very, very easy for students to see. It's also easy for students to hear. The floors are hardwood. The walls are white and for reflecting light. They are thick, very thick walls for reflecting sound. to give you an idea of how well built my office is as a studio, we filmed our on-demand GRE course in this room, in this office. We filmed it first. First, we filmed it on a sound stage, and then we filmed it in this office. And there was better lighting and better sound in this office. And we filmed it twice. So we're all set up for online courses.
Got it, Derek. One final question, or one final topic to talk about, is the standardized test itself. What is your, I know, you make a living, your business, it's what you do, test prep, but taking a step outside of it, how do you look at the entire standardized test in the test prep scene? Do you think there are other ways to evaluate students' preparedness for the college admissions, or do you think this is one of the best ways going currently?
Great question. The answer is that, and by the way, it's funny that people listening to this podcast might say, wow, he loves all your questions. This sounds like an advertisement. The two of you must have coordinated before the podcast. You must have told him what questions to ask. And as you know, that's not true at all. You did not share any questions with me before this podcast. There was no coordination whatsoever. You just happened to be asking good questions. Back to your question. Standardized. Just lost my train of thought. I got so excited about the question. I forgot what the question was.
Oh, the question
please,
what is your opinion on the standardized test? Is that the best
way
to evaluate students' preparedness for the class?
Yes. So the short answer is yes. Standardized tests have been controversial for years because many people view them as a class system, if you will, because students who come from more well-to-do families can, a higher socioeconomic level, have access to more preparatory materials, companies like mine. And as someone who received no test preparation whatsoever from his family, from someone who came from a family that did not spend more than $20 on his test preparation, I understand that completely. I was on that end of it, okay? I got nothing. Somebody threw a book at me and said, here, prepare. So I received nothing. So I understand that argument entirely. However, there is no substitute for standardized tests when it comes to making apples to apples comparisons for college and graduate school and even high school admissions. There's no substitute because admissions officers have no idea what to do with grades. They have no idea what to do with grades. Everyone knows in high school or middle school, take this teacher. This teacher grades very well. Don't take that teacher. That teacher's impossible. This teacher gives a lot of work. That one doesn't. Except for a few very famous high schools like the Exeter Academy, most admissions officers have no idea what to do with grades. None whatsoever. Standardized tests provide a level playing field, apples to apples comparisons for all students across the board. And that's why a lot of students themselves and even their parents have a hard time even conceptualizing. When I tell them that a single standardized test is weighted more heavily than all 4 years of high school grades combined, or in the case of the GRE, that the GRE is weighted, that was the SAT and ACT, in the case of the GRE, that the GRE is weighted more heavily than all 4 years of college grades combined. Most people don't believe it. They have a hard time conceptualizing. Like, what are you talking about? You mean to tell me that all the work I did this year and the year before and the year before, one test is weighted more heavily? And the short answer is yes. A single test is weighted more heavily by admissions officers than all 4 years of college grades combined or high school grades combined. Why? Because admissions officers have no idea what to do with grades. Grades depend on the teachers. Some schools are easy. Some schools are impossible. Some teachers are easy. Some teachers are impossible. Admissions officers have no idea what to do with grades. And 4 years ago, during the height of COVID, when COVID was getting started, standardized tests were largely made optional or canceled entirely. And admissions officers had no idea whom they should accept. No idea. They couldn't tell the applicants apart. They had no idea who to accept. And now the pendulum is swinging back in the other direction. Stanford just announced that it's one of the top universities in the United States, that for the 2025 class, they're going to be requiring standardized tests. A lot of universities are requiring them again because they had no idea whom to accept 4 years ago. And now, anybody who's paying attention to these in the United States knows that a lot of elite universities have come under fire recently for their students, some of the statements their students have been making, some of the more outlandish positions their students have been taking. Without getting into those debates themselves, perhaps it's not a coincidence that the names of the top universities are being ruined by a class 4 years after the test became optional. In other words, it's the classes that did not need to take those tests that are now ruining the names of the universities. So maybe that's a coincidence, maybe it's not, but the pendulum is swinging back. So don't take my word for it. These admissions officers are starting to inquire because there's no other way to make apples to apples comparisons. How do you compare some junior living in Southern California with another high school junior who's living in Boston? You need apples to apples comparisons. There's no substitute for it.
Got it, Eric. Eric, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your insights and all the
You're very welcome.
responses to my questions. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.